Marvin Harrison Jr. is wide receiver 1, but who is wide receiver 2? Malik Nabers from LSU has a strong case to leapfrog Keon Coleman from Florida State. We're going to tell you why next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out to you guys for being our everydayers. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout over with the Draft Network. And guys, you already know who's with me, the champ himself, Mr. LSU 2019 national champ with them LSU Bengal Tigers, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on Twitter at TheTalentCode. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, and we are back at it with another episode, man, from your dynamic duo of the Locked On NFL Draft. Bring you that championship level content like we do every single day, man. We're ready to get this thing going, man. We have a conversation. Who is wide receiver 2, man? Is it Malik Nabers? Is it Keon Coleman? Is it Rome Odunze? And we can keep on going, right? We're going to have a dope conversation about that for all the NFL draft fans. We're going to get into that conversation. Then draft scenarios. New England Patriots potentially with a top 5 pick. Is Bill Belichick going to be the head coach? Is Robert Kraft going to let him make the decisions? We don't know, D people. We're going to have a discussion about what we think they should do in the New York Jets. Listen, we've held on to it, man. We've held on. We tried and we tried again. It's time to replace Zach Wilson. We're going to talk about what draft prospects we're going to replace Zach Wilson with, because Aaron Rodgers only has a year, maybe 2 left. So if you want to keep this thing going and have a somewhat of a dynasty or a 10, 15-year run at this thing, we need to figure out a young replacement. So DP, before we get this thing started, man, why don't you hit him with our title sponsor?
Download the Game Time app, guys. Create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Keith, when I ask you who is wide receiver 2, who comes to mind for you?
DP is a whole bunch of names. Almost it's like I just go boom, 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 right? I go through a bunch of names, man. And this is fun. I hope our listeners can hear the excitement in my voice. You asked me probably about 6 weeks ago, and I said Keon Coleman, right? And I said, listen, you're talking about 6'4", 220 pounds, short area explosiveness, run after the catch ability, contested catch ability is through the roof, man. I jump ball guy, it's not jump balls, it's not 50-50, it's 90-10, right? For Keon Coleman, man, ability to make the spectacular play. But DP, I'm leaning a little bit to that LSU Bengal Tiger, to Malik Nabers, man. And you just look at the stats. He's just putting up numbers every single week. He's already eclipsed 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's already eclipsed 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. But I don't want to just talk about just the stats. It's him winning, right? Like, this is a guy that can line outside. He can line him in the slot. And what I watched the Bama game, DP, this morning, and what it was is that you see how his IQ is, right? And I was there for Justin Jefferson. I was there for Jamar Chase. I was there for Terrace Marshall, right? I was there for DJ Chark. I've seen all of these, guys that get drafted extremely high. And then I also seen guys that are extremely productive in NFL. And DP, what's something that I always talk about? The instincts, the IQ, and the route tempo, right? And Malik Nabers has that, man. And I watched him play a slot against Alabama. And it was a thing of heart, man, the way he was able to set defenders up, consistently get open for Jay Daniels. So if you ask me right now, DP, I'm flipping the script a little bit. I'm going with Malik Nabers for wide receiver 2. But if you ask me at the end of the season, I may switch again.
I like the disclaimer, because all you're doing is letting us know it's a fluid conversation right now, right, Keith? It's just fluid, baby. And I'm with you. And for me, I was right where you were, Keith, where it was like Keon Coleman was like, man, it just seems like he's at the top, right? Especially at the beginning of the season, first couple of weeks, it was like, okay, especially once like that first game, like Marvin Harrison Jr., where they just couldn't give him the football. Then after that, like he took off, and it was like, okay, yeah, he's clear wide receiver 1, like he's the top. But then you see Keon Coleman, the game against Clemson, where when he wasn't covered by Nate Wiggins, nobody else really could have success against him. And then of course He has like you talk about the ball skills, the game winning catch, right? The 50, what we call 50-50 balls, like you said, 90-10. In that situation, it was 100% to 0 for Keon Coleman, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to just hope just on the stats, because the problem is with Florida State, right, is that they blowing people out. Like,
yeah,
they're up 30, 40 points, and there's no reason to have Keon Coleman in the
game.
And
they got a lot of weapons too, so they don't have to force feed.
They have a lot of weapons, but on the opposite side, right, with LSU and and Malik Nabers and that offense, LSU offense gonna score 30, and their defense gonna give up 31, right? So they have to play. They have to play the entire game, and they have to go at it the entire time. So you kind of understand that too. So I don't want to just look at it statistically. I guess I just put Malik Nabers at wide receiver 2 simply because I'm seeing the versatility in what he can do too, and I think that's special. Like that slot fade ball and his ability to run that slot fade. This, like, he has that down to a pack, right? Like that immediately translates to the NFL. But DP, we talked about 2 names, right? I want to ask Rome Odunze, Troy Franklin, right? Like that, because there's still other names out there that people are throwing in that conversation. Do you feel like there's another name that could emerge as that wide receiver 2 in this draft, or a name that's off the radar a little bit that nobody's thinking about? Because we did have the year where I forgot who was in that draft. Was that the Jerry Jeudy and Justin Jefferson?
Henry Ruggs went wide receiver 1.
And Henry Ruggs went wide receiver 1, right? Is there somebody that's kind of off the radar that could potentially come in as wide receiver 2 that has a skill set or a special skill set that nobody's talking about?
Yeah, I mean, before that, I mean, of course, like I wanted to finish. Like, yeah, I'm with you, but Malik Nabers is my wide receiver 2 right now. But like you talk about Keon Coleman and Rome Odunze being right on his heels, those guys are there. When you ask if there's anybody that can come out of nowhere and leapfrog all those guys, it's my guy, the X-Man, Xavier Legette from South Carolina, 6'3", 228. And when there's not many, like the jump, there's a couple guys in this class that can dominate the catch point. Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, we showed that against Oregon, right? We've seen it with Keon Coleman. Xavier Legette is a high point artist, like talking about not just on the sideline, the boundary, but if you go back to the Florida game, right? I think it was like a 45-yard post route, and his leaping ability, his ability to maintain his body control. And it seems like when you're slowing the play down, it looks like he just consistently elevates. Like he has outstanding physical ability. Like I said, 6'3", 228 with his leaping ability, his speed. I think he's clocked in at almost 23 miles per hour this season, right? You go back to the Mississippi State game, you got him on a crosser, and you still got a litany of defenders with upfield leverage on him, and he just catches that little 2-3 yard crossing route and then speeds past everyone. And he looks like I think you've kept throwing out Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf. I mean, in the comp I have for him is actually AJ Brown. I think he's very AJ Brown
too, because like from a height perspective, he's closer to that, but very similar builds, right? DK may be a little bit taller, like pushing that 6'4". Yeah, and I think AJ Brown. I thought about that. I thought about that, DP, literally this weekend when the Eagles played the Cowboys. And I'm like, that's kind of how Xavier Legette
his game is kind of similar too, because like they're good route runners for their size and what you ask them to do, but their special ability is after the catch. Like once they make the catch, it's hard to bring these big dudes down. And talking about AJ Brown and Xavier Legette, and I can see a team, and Keith, and this is how we know how this process goes, guys. The tape is good. He looks good on the huff, right? You see me like, man, he looks like a boss. He looks like a beast. Then we get to Indianapolis, right? And when they measure him in, and he's 6'3", so let's say he's 230, 228, 230, and this young man busts a 4.39, Keith, 4.38, jumps 41, 42. His broad jump is 11, and it's like, hold on a second now. Like there's things here you can't teach. And that's what scouts and GMs love, because it's like, all right, I can expand your route tree. Like we can run what you're good at, but I can't build this. I don't have the tools. I'm not God. I can't just lay a figure down and stretch him to 6'3", make him 228, and tell him to run and jump as high as this young man is rumored to do. So I think he could potentially leapfrog those names that we talked about, even the Keon Coleman, because to me, the speed for him is greater than what Keon possesses as well. Rome Odunze is faster than Keon, I would say, but Keon's he's not slow or anything. Just those guys I think are next level type of athletes in the straight line.
Yeah, we'll definitely see DP in the through one other name. And then when you said the X-Man, this is where I thought you were going, right? I thought you was going with Xavier Worthy. You picked the wrong Xavier on me. I thought for sure you was going Xavier Worthy, but I like it, DP. Listen, we named off 7 names talking about potentially for wide receiver 2. So this is gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a fun conversation. Like I said, we haven't even jumped fully all the way into the draft conversations there, so we'll dive deep into these guys. But DP, let's keep this thing going, man. We have to go to the northeast portions of the country, to the New England Patriots, and figure out draft scenarios. What do we think the combination of Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, right? Mac Jones is still there. What do we think they should do for the 2024 NFL draft?
You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. But guys, if you wait to the last minute, you will worry and you will stress, because at the last minute and moment, you're trying to find the best deals. You're competing with other buyers, and you're trying to avoid dealing with scammers and scalpers. Let me tell you about Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. What do they offer, DP? I'm going to tell you. They offer last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. Their tickets are easy to find and buy, and I absolutely love the fact that they show all the views from all the seats in the venue, so you know what vantage point you'll have if you purchase that ticket. Guys, this week right now on the Game Time app, if you are in the Oregon area and you want to see Caleb Williams versus the Oregon Ducks this Saturday, you can get a ticket as cheap as $71. Guys, it's cheap. It's $71. So all you need to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Things have looked vastly different since Tom Brady has left the New England Patriots. They have to find what they are and what they're going to be, Keith. They have right now, per NFL.com, they are slated with the 5th pick in the 2024 NFL draft. Keith, how is it? I want to pose this question. Should they move up? Right? And say the draft was today and they had the 5th overall pick. What position should they go after? Because they need a quarterback, but Keith, they need weapons too.
Yeah, so DP, this is the thing, right? That this is tough. And because I'm trying to balance both angles, right? They take a quarterback, right? You're still going to need the offensive weapons, right? And if you rock with Mac Jones, you have the potential to nab a Marvin Harrison Jr., right? A Keon Coleman, a Xavier, Legette, right? So it's a Malik Nabers, right? And then now you have that offensive weapon for Mac Jones to kind of balance some things out, right? And if you have the chance to get Marvin Harrison Jr., you're talking about immediately X wide receiver, right? He's my X. He's the top guy. I probably didn't drafted a top 5, top 10 wide receiver. Now the question is this: how do you feel about Mac Jones, right? When you're talking about draft scenarios, how do you feel about Mac Jones? Is Mac Jones a trailer? Is he a hitch? I'm not going to even mention the truck part, right? We're not going to talk about the truck, because if it was the truck, we wouldn't have this conversation. But is he a trailer or is he a hitch, right? Because if you feel like there's not even a chance that he can move into the hitch conversation, then you may need to draft a quarterback, because you're always going to have an elite offensive group around him, and your team is going to have to be well balanced. But if you feel like he's a hitch, right, well, I just have to get a couple more pieces for him, then you go with the wide receiver. So it's going to be fun watching him do this, because Bill Belichick has, he's ran these kind of smoke and mirror type situations with the draft for 10, 15 years, where it's like, oh, I'm going to just trade back and I'm going to just draft this position and I'm going to just do something y'all don't think. Was like with that top 5 pick, I dare you to walk away with a Cole Strange, right? Like, you bet not come away with Cole Strange out of that situation. And there's no disrespect to Cole Strange. It's just, you like this, when you top 5, you almost can't get to, I guess, in a situation that you're smarter than everybody else, right? Or you're going against the grain too much. So I think that to answer your question is that I think they can go multiple different ways. I just think, what is the evaluation of Mac Jones for them?
So I think Mac Jones could be a hitch, Keith. I think that very similar to, what we've seen with Tua and what we've seen from like Kirk Cousins. If you put pieces around them, these guys will be able to produce for you, right? Mm-hmm. Now, again, will you be able to win titles with them? It depends, right? Like the defense has to be on their game and stuff like that, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. We're watching Brock Purdy over at San Francisco 49ers, right? Have success. And to me, he's more of around that hitch trailer combination, right? So I think that if you keep Mac Jones and you go with, of course, free agency, if you get this offensive line going, you can run the football, you have the running backs there, but you add the Marvin Harrison Jr., you add a Rome Odunze or Keon Coleman, you add that guy that teams have to shift their coverage towards, because the Patriots offense doesn't have that right now. They don't have that guy that the defenses walk into the defensive meeting that we say, all right, we're circling X player, let's take him away, right? They don't have that.
No, they don't. And you think about how quickly you can turn that around, DP. Kyle Pitts may be on a trading block, right? You send a second or third for Kyle Pitts. Jerry Jeudy, right, has been he was on a trading block.
He was linked to the Patriots during this trade deadline.
You send a second or third pick for him, and then you add in, like you said, one of these young talented guys, Marvin Harrison Jr. So if you play this right, there's a chance that you can swing this. And I'm not saying no specific players, right? But the trade block in what free agency, trading for players.
T. Higgins
right?
is going to be a free agent.
Yeah, T. Higgins, right? So you could walk away with Marvin Harrison Jr., T. Higgins, and Kyle Pitts, or Marvin Harrison Jr., right? One of the Marvin Harrison Jr., Jerry Jeudy, and another tight end, right? That's and while you still have Hunter Henry on this team, so you can kind of turn this thing around to where it's like, man, this was pretty bad to being pretty good. And much like what you said, DP, with the Miami Dolphins, right? What they drafted Jalen Waddle, and then they went acquired Tyreek Hill, and then now you went from bottom of the barrel when they had is ironic enough, right? Devontae Parker, right? And they had Devontae Parker of the Dolphins, and he was like, "That's our number one." Then the New England Patriots took him and said, "No, that's our number.
That's
one, right?
our number one."
Yeah, but we know he's not a number one, right? I think we know now that he's not a number one. So
I think
they can do.
Look, I'm about to say, go ahead. I want to cut you off.
Yeah. No, it's just that I think they can turn this thing around offensively really quick if they actually invest into it. But that's why we wanted to build Belichick's mindset and his thought process is that he's like, you can't outthink this one, right? Like, just go with, like, just do with the trend is. He always try to go against the trend. And I get it. Sometimes you have to zig when people are zagging, but you didn't zigzag your way out of it. You know what I'm saying? You didn't zigzag your way out of the playoffs, out of the discussion. You zigzagged your way to the bottom of the AFC East.
And Keith, to your point, this is what I would say, like, because I thought about that. Well, you know what? You're at the 5th spot. Maybe you trade up, and because I like JJ McCarthy. I really like Michael Penix. I like those other quarterbacks. So I'm like, do I like those guys and what they can make, what impact they can make on this roster, right? You know what I'm saying? With what they have now, or would I rather have Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Because then I'm also thinking ahead too, because I'm like, all right, if Mac Jones just bottoms out in 2024 and you end up with another top 3 pick, you thinking about Carson Beck, you're thinking about Shedeur Sanders, right? There's going to be more quarterbacks in the next draft, right? So it's like, okay, maybe we'll be in play for that. But this is why I say you stay put at 5. Don't trade draft capital to move up into the top 2 or 3. I just feel like your team offensively needs more, and quarterback won't change it as much. Granted, again, Drake May and Caleb Williams is extremely enticing. But I would say you stay, if Marvin Harrison Jr., when these receivers are there, this is what you do. Keith, my plan would be this. Find the money, go get T. Higgins, right? Go get T. Higgins through free agency, okay? So you got T. Higgins, you already have Juju, you have Demario Douglas, you got Keishon Butte. You got some young pieces to work with, right? That 5th overall pick, Keith, I say, you know what? Let's go get me a Brock Bowers at 5. Brock Bowers and Marvin Harrison Jr. Those are the two, to me, those are the 2 best players in college football. You go get one of those guys, and now this offense with Mac Jones, he can walk in and take a sigh of relief. Remember, I think you told a story, excuse me. You told a story, I think, over this summer about when you walked in to practice when Joe Brady first got to LSU, and how it was like a sigh of relief. You're like, man, we ain't open. We in 11 personnel. Like, that's gonna be Mac Jones walking out there to T. Higgins, Demario Douglas, Keishon Butte, and Brock Bowers. That man gonna walk out there like, hey man, I got some weapons now. Not only can we run the ball, but we got a play action game to go with.
Yeah, and we've seen it and we've talked about it. You've seen with these Bama quarterbacks, right? Like, listen, at the end of the day, when they were at Alabama, they were surrounded by extreme high-level talent, first round after first round after first rounder, followed by more first rounders that was on the bench, right? And so the thought process should probably be, let's surround them with more first round wide receivers or just high level talent, so that way we can get, just get the very best out of them and be able to do some of the things that they did. Because the thing with Bill O'Brien was at Alabama, right? So he knows some of that Alabama offensive scheme. He knows what some of Mac Jones was running, right there. We know that coaches talk, right? They have conversations. We know that you'll be able to say, hey, this is what this guy does best. This is what he did best for me in college.
Thanks.
DP, man, let's keep this thing going, man. We talked about the New England Patriots. We're going to stay in the AFC East, and we're going to talk about replacing Zach Wilson. How do we do that? How do you go about that? We know Aaron Rodgers, this year, who knows, to talk about conspiracies with is his Achilles really torn? He's already walking and stuff.
He said, I'm going to be back in a couple of weeks.
Right. He said he'll be back in a couple of weeks. So we'll see how that thing plays out. But we know ultimately, DP, the New York Jets are going to have to find a long-term answer. So y'all stay tuned, because we about to find that long-term answer for the New York Jets.
Why would you want to root for your team on an empty stomach? Guys, go order on DoorDash and save on football watch party favorites. I am in the Greenville County area of South Carolina, and one of my favorite spots, especially for desserts, to order from is Cheesecake Factory, right? They have a lot of different other menu items, but me and my wife, we love their cheesecake, right? Reese Peanut Butter Cup, Red Velvet, you name it, they have it. We love it. And to get it ordered right to our front door, especially when you think about during game day for your watch party, you've eaten all the burgers, the pizza, the wings, you've eaten all the stuff, right? But instead of having to whip up anything on your own, just order on DoorDash and get your cheesecake delivered and your dessert delivered right to your front door. That's what we do. So kick back at kickoff with unbeatable deals on everything you need for your watch party, or if you're at the game and you need it for your tailgate. All right, get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. When you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. Monday Night Football, Keith, when Zach Wilson held the ball for 2.5 seconds or more, he was sacked 8 times. So he's only looked good when they've schemed up the quick throws to get the ball out of his hands. His pocket presence isn't good. Guys, his inability to read defenses quickly and efficiently, it's shown up all season this year. That's why they have to find a long-term answer, Keith. And with this draft class, right, they're not. They're 4-4. I don't foresee them being in the top 10. You know what I mean? To have a shot at McCarthy or maybe Michael Penix. Maybe he falls to them in the middle of the first round. Stuff like that. Bo Nix. What quarterback do you think would do well? Granted, next year Aaron Rodgers will be back. Have a year to sit behind AR12. Well, he's not even. Is he still 12 in New York? I can't remember.
No, I think it's 8. Is it 8?
8, yeah. So AR8 now. Aaron Rodgers. What quarterback comes to mind out of this draft class, that you say, you know what, I'm cool with you sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a year because I think that you can be the future for us?
Yeah, like just thinking about it, right? I have a name. I'm gonna go Spencer Rattler. Rattler because I don't think he's gonna be a first round pick.
Right.
I like the process of him going to South Carolina, and not just for a year, him returning and sticking it out, right? Because it'd been one thing if he'd have went there for a year, they lost, and then he bailed, right? And was like, you know what, I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with this. But he came back another year to try to progress, to try to get better, right? The question surrounding Spencer Rattler was not necessarily it was his talent. It was a question of off the field commitment to the game. That was some of the things that people were talking about, right? Like, why isn't it producing? And I think that we've seen Spencer Rattler to go through the process of maturity in South Carolina, losing week after week, right? But him still showing on film, DP, is that I'm a talented guy. I like the pairing because, like we said, he's going to have an adjustment period to the NFL. It is perfectly fine with you sitting a year, and I don't think a guy with that type of, I guess, impact, right, just because of who he is, right, and the name and everything that comes with it, I don't think he is going to necessarily be disgruntled sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. Then you talk about the big lights of New York Jets, DP. This is a guy that was a 5-star quarterback, right? He did the QB1 documentary in Netflix. Like, it's the opposite almost from the Zach Wilson situation. We talked about small town kid from BYU. And everything else around with Zach Wilson. He's almost had it the opposite. He's always been in the spotlight, right? This is the most he hasn't been in the spotlight whether it be good or bad. So I think Spencer Rattler is a guy that can handle the big lights. He's talented. You want a quarterback that can make all the throws. Spencer Rattler can make all the throws. It's just a matter of what level quarterback are you getting, what level commitment to the game. I think about Garrett Wilson being frustrated, right? I think about, the rest of their receiver corps being frustrated. I think about the New York Jets trying to be able to bridge the gap from Aaron Rodgers and not falling off, but staying towards the top of the AFC East for the next 10 years.
I like the Rattler call out, Keith. I had 3 names that came to mind. Thought about Bo Nix a little bit, but I think when you brought up the bright lights, that's why I was like, I'm not calling him Zach Wilson, but I don't want to put him in that situation where it's like you go from Oregon, where the media coverage, the expectations, everything is nowhere near what it's going to be. You go to the Big Apple in New York City, so I X'd him out. But the real 3 names I came across. Your LSU Bengal Tiger, Jaden Daniels, right? Talk about Jaden Daniels in this offense and what he could do. And Zach Wilson's an athletic young man. I don't see enough of him trying to even use his legs and stuff like that instead of him sitting in the pocket activating that. So Jaden Daniels could do that, right? A guy out of sight, out of mind right now, Quinn Ewers. What does his draft stock look like after, because of the injury? I feel like his draft stock can slip a little bit.
That's a really good call.
So I thought about Quinn Ewers, and then the other name I thought about Cam Ward as well. And I thought about Cam Ward as a guy that you're talking about sitting behind Aaron Rodgers, right? You could probably get him in the 3rd round. Okay, you don't even have to get him in the 1st or the 2nd. You probably can snatch him in the 3rd, and you can sit him because he's still young. I don't know what happened. Like he must have been the early enrollee because I think he's still only like 21 years old. It feels like he's playing like 4 full years of almost 5 years of college football from his time at Incarnate Word and down 2 years here at Wazoo. I think if you pair him with his arm talent, his mobility, this young man is a natural passer of the football, man. He's tough. He's a tough-minded young man. He's just at a team that isn't really overly talented. And I think about having a quarterback that could be in the pocket and make plays with his legs and be able to throw the ball to Garrett Wilson, right? Get the ball to Breece Hall in the passing game. And not just that, but then lighten the load for Breece Hall. I think all 3 of those guys can do it, man. Quinn, Jaden Daniels, or Cam Ward. And Quinn and Jaden Daniels, those are guys who will probably be more in reach for them in the 1st round, where their pick will be. And then Cam Ward is like, okay, maybe we improve the O-line with the 1st round pick, go somewhere else with the 2nd pick in the 2nd round. And if Cam Ward is still right, he's right there in the third round, let's go ahead and make that move.
Yeah, so I like the Quinn Ewers selection, and I like it for much of how I explained Spencer Rattler, right? Another 5-star quarterback, seen in the big lights, been around the big lights his entire time, went to Texas, NIL deals, everybody knows him, famous for a mullet, right? So he understands the media scrutiny already. So and then also I like the talent. I don't want to just talk about that part, but I like the talent that Quinn Ewers is in the process of a guy that can throw with anticipation, right? He understands how to read defenses. He's instinctual. Like he's a lot of, and I hate to say it in this way, but the only way I could say is like he's a lot of what Zach Wilson isn't, right? Like you can tell this guy has played a lot of football. Same with Spencer Rattler, like a guy that's played a lot of football. And like I said, just going there, sit behind Aaron Rodgers. And I think, DP, that they probably should go offensive line first, right? Just to get another offensive tackle, a really high-level interior offensive lineman, and shore up that offensive line. And then now you go get that quarterback in the 2nd round. You know what I'm saying? And then, like I said, if Quinn Ewers is there, that's cool, because I envision, DP, and I don't know yet, right? Because there's still a whole lot to be played. But we still got to see how big is Quinn Ewers, right? How strong is his arm, right? Like the injury situation back-to-back years. So it's a possibility, right, that Quinn Ewers does fall to the 2nd round due to medicals and him being possibly only 6 foot or 5'11" and 7/8 and 195 pounds, right? Like that can make some general managers, some teams, some NFL personnel officers a little bit nervous, just to draft that guy that high because you're already talking about injury. So, DP, I like the New York Jets conversation. I like the AFC East conversation and the wide receiver 2 conversation, man. It was really fun, man. But that wraps up another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man, with your dynamic duo. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. You can find DP Damian Parsons, my running mate, man. You can find him on X at DP_NFL, man. And like we always like to say, man, y'all talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Guys, thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out to you guys for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, we have Thursday Night Football, potentially Justin Fields versus Bryce Young. And listen, this game legitimately has NFL 2024 NFL Draft implications. So we're going to get into all of that and impact rookies, so forth and so on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.